as I said before, the reason why that's important, because it could be coming soon to a city near you, because your governor wants to be, he's a nobody. He's a neophyte that wants to be somebody. And he's proven that he's willing to step in and violate your civil rights, your human rights, in order to move up inside of, the political arena in Maryland, and he wants to do so on a national level. So don't think that they wouldn't allow this type of activity to take place in Baltimore City or in Prince George's County in order for your governor to get the national spotlight as the governor of Massachusetts, Deval Patrick, President Obama's BFF, along with the police chief up there, Ed Davis, along with others that want to be able to get the spotlight to launch their career. So everybody has stepped in and made a killing, no pun intended, of what we saw in Boston. Now, Israel said this will further their agenda, which is the Israelization of our supposedly Department of Homeland Security, because many of them that are running it are Zionists, and I can prove it. In fact, I'll give you a clip in a few minutes to show you it ain't Janet Napolitano that's running things. Oh, no. It was set up by them, for them, and it's benefited them, from your checkpoints on your highways to your TSA when you go to fly, and then they make you pay for it. But don't think that your governor will not allow them to use Maryland or Baltimore as a launching pad for this type of activity as well. In fact, he's going to Israel next week, I think. You better check him. He's going to Israel next week. You better check him. So that you ask some questions. You're living in some very dangerous times, and you don't see it. But all of this supposedly for one man, all of this shutting down Boston, but not the financial district. If you read my Facebook page, the Federal Reserve was open. The financial district in Boston was open. He even gave permission for the Dunkin' Donuts to be kept open up there. So clearly you got to ask, man, who's zooming who and what really was going on up there in Boston? What really was going on up there in Boston? So again, Boston Marathon alleged suspect, awake and responding in writing. Now, they try to make you think that this young man was cold as ice, but yet they say he's cooperating. He was so cold, they said he ran his brother over and kept driving. This is how cold they said he was. He was so cold and so bold. Now, they've got him up there watching Sesame Street and writing like Tickle Me Elmo. Do you remember that just a few days ago? He was so cold and so bold. Now he's cooperating. Things that make you go, Here's another one, Boston Marathon Secrets, which that's at Infowars.com, which you definitely want to check out. Again, in this one from Alex Jones, talking about the Boston Marathon Massacre, Masquerade, the false flag, the police state, and the martial law. That was all, of course, implemented in that 1 week, because the first 2 days they didn't know nothing. Then the last 48 hours from Thursday to Friday, they knew everything. If you notice that, which means that they had more patsies there. So just like they have snipers, they have an A team, a B team, a C team, and a D team. And if that team don't work, then we'll use them to be the fall guy. That's how the game was done. So they might have had some Arabs there, which they did. The Saudi nationalist who was arrested at the hospital was taken to the courthouse. They evacuated the courthouse because somebody obviously said, this our man, you can't touch him. He was allowed to get on a plane and was flown back to Saudi Arabia. Was visited in the hospital by President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama. But we'll give you his name. I promise you. I won't get into that right now, but I'll give you his name. That's one of my 17 unanswered questions about why your president and your First Lady went to see the Saudi Arabian nationalist who was there as well. Then Israeli Mossad was there. Nobody's asked that question. Again, what was Israel's role? As we saw with Hurricane Katrina, which was a feeding frenzy for everybody, and how many of the military contractors were in New Orleans weeks before Hurricane Katrina, which was a tabletop exercise that they had been rehearsing and drilling for, called Hurricane Pam. If you don't believe me, just Google it. Don't say I'm making it up. It's in the Department of Homeland Security writings. And so it is in this article talking about Boston, one of the most safe cities in America, and talking about how they have been having drills, Operation Urban Shield, which they prepared for. But it says part of the money, let me try to give you this right here. Talking about this, as I promised you the other day, let me give you a little of this. Over the past decade, here we go. Here we go. This is what I want to give. Everything that you saw happen within seconds of the explosion, says James Baker, the president of a security consultancy, Sitel Group, was all because someone thought they should be prepared for that. Baker would know in the past 24 months, he has helped Boston run 2 massive 24-hour worst-case scenario simulations, drills, that bore no small resemblance to the situation unfolding this afternoon in Waterton. Over the past decade, the Department of Homeland Security has funneled billions of dollars toward the protection of U.S. cities. Boston is one of DHS's Tier 1 U.S. metro areas, and DHS's view one of the country's 10 most likely targets for terrorism. The Urban Area Security Initiative, or UASI, the largest part of Homeland Security grant program, distributes $500 million annually to 31 U.S. metros and sent $11 million to Boston in the 2012 fiscal year. But yet they got you talking about contribute to the Boston Fund. They sitting on at least $11 million and telling you they need you to send a donation? No, they need to send you some money. But this article, which you can read, I think it's at AtlanticCities.com, the Atlantic Cities, and it's entitled Boston is one of the best prepared U.S. cities to handle a crisis. Written by Henry Grabar, Grabar. Goes on and says, for part of the money must go toward live drills. So over the past couple of years, Boston has conducted 2 citywide disaster simulations with Cytel Group's Urban Shield using the preparation after action reports from the first trial in May 2011 to improve the city's preparedness in the second in November 2012. The city also hosted an emergency management summit last August. But let me keep going because here's another part I definitely want you to get regarding, again, even how Hollywood got involved. Let me make sure I can find this so I can give it to you because I know some of you would say, Brother Muhammad, you making this up. No, they said they came complete with amputees and everything else, man. It says the drill, which included hostage situations, hazmat incidents, and a movie theater shooting, brought together emergency officials from the city, state, and federal government, as well as from the Boston Police, SWAT teams, the fire department, the EMS, local hospitals, the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, the Coast Guard, and all in all, there were over 600 participants in the November drill from over 50 different agencies. But I want to give you this part right here. Let me see if we can find it. Oh, the drills are intended to be strikingly lifelike. Now, what's the chances of them videotaping the drill and then sending that to the news media as if that is live coverage of what's taking place at an event? But listen to this part. Urban Shield has worked with Strategic Operations, a Hollywood special effects company that also prepares Army medics. And check this out. Listen to what they say. Prepares Army medics for battlefield. Their disaster scenario staff, Baker says, includes an amputee. Let me say that again. Includes an amputee. And you saw those pictures with an amputee all at Boston, right? How many amputees they said they performed? 8? You better check it and see when them stumps really was amputee. You better check it and see how long them chumps been wearing them stumps up there, man. Says with a generous helping of moulage, which means they can bring blood. Moulage, meaning blood is what they can bring. Their drills aim to force officials to confront both the logistical and atmospheric challenges of a disaster. Now, I'm not going to continue to read that, but you can read it and realize that most of what you probably saw up there was some drills and footage of some drills that they sent to the news media to say that this was live coverage. But let me open up the lines. Take more of your thoughts, questions, comments, if you like. 410-761-1592. And let me go back to the Facebook page, give you some of these other headlines that you can read. Again, Savnav's aunt claims naked man in the video is Tamerlan. Tamerlan is the older brother who they said is still alive. So I don't know who that body was or what that body was they put down on that ground, but it wasn't the oldest brother for sure. But let's keep going as we're looking at some of these headlines again. This one is dealing with from Tom Hannigan. Again, Operation Whack-A-Mole, which you want to pick up and read. I'll come back and get into it. But he's talking about the false flag, the Mossad, and others that were there at the Boston Marathon. But it's from Tom Hannigan. Again, International Intelligence, Heneghan, which he just posted. And from C-SPAN, back-to-back C-SPAN callers, Boston Marathon bombing, a false flag to take away more of our rights. And that's what I said. Everybody got in to make a killing, from the military industrial complex to contractors to foreign governments such as the Israeli Mossad that was there, so they can go back there and violate more rights of the Palestinians, and even those now in other countries that are looking at this and saying if America could do that to their country, they can do that inside of America in a major city like Boston, then we can do the same thing in our country. So it's a very dangerous time in terms of where this country is moving, in terms of outright fascism, to see how much the American people will tolerate. And then put it on television, and some of you sat there glued to the television, not to get information to see and read between the lines, but you couldn't get enough, in the words of Kool and the Gang, can't get enough of that funky stuff. You were eating it up like a pig in a pig pen or a pigsty. You couldn't get enough of it. Or it's how they have you socially engineered, socially ingested, and socially interfered, so much so that you have Stockholm syndrome, that you identify with that kind of oppression that you see going on, and you just want a little bit more of it. You couldn't sleep without it. You couldn't wake up without it. But soon it may be coming to a city near you. And that's your brothers and sisters down in Katrina. When they thought that they were just going to leave for a moment and come back in, and they didn't take their ID. And most of those people down there weren't poor people. They were middle-class black people, like the ones you see that live in Ashburton, the ones you see that live in other parts of this city, going up and down that Liberty Road corridor. And once they got out of their house and they didn't have no ID, and even some that had ID couldn't get back into their homes. So again, they may go door to door soon, coming searching for your guns. Searching for your guns. So all this wasn't nothing but a prelude. All this wasn't nothing but preparation for the manifestation for what is ultimately going to go down in cities in this country and rural areas in this country as well. So that's why they had to change the script and try to find some other patsies, because they initially wanted to blame some white guys and then fool some of you and your petty nationalism. So you can say, I knew it was some white nationals. I knew it was some white skinheads. I knew it was some anti-party members. No, it's D-Party down there. It's D-Party down there in Washington, D.C. that's pulling this off. So you don't pay attention to what they're about to do to your Social Security, what they're about to do to your jobs, your pensions, and everything else right now. You're distracted from the real truth of what's really going on in this country right now, not to mention this economic collapse that you just weeks from. Here's another one. 17 unanswered questions about the Boston Marathon that the media is afraid to ask. And you can read this at InfoWars, and at David Icke's you can read it. Also, the world of synthetic manufactured terrorism. As I said before, most of the terrorism that's gone down in this country has been carried out by the FBI and the CIA. You can ask Dr. Tyrone Powers. I'll see if he'll come on and talk about it. Some of them, it puts them in a very precarious position, because if they're consultants with the news media talk about terrorism, they start not talking about it from the perspective that we're talking about it from. I'm not saying that particular brother, but others, they may not be invited back to the conversation. They may not be invited back to the news media to talk about it. You start looking at it from the perspective that we're talking about it. We're looking at it outside the box as opposed to inside of the box, to say, hey, man, they getting ready to have a Congressional Medal of Honor for the 4 little girls in Birmingham. And that FBI agent that played a hand in their death is still alive. If he's not alive, he's still living and took those secrets with him to the grave. Many of our leaders, our children, and those that were killed during the height of the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, the peace movement, were killed by agent provocateurs that was working for the federal government, CIA, FBI, and other departments that you know nothing about. And most of the files have been sealed so that you can't know what type of tactics that they used. This is why it's important to hear elders such as Dick Gregory and others that are still here that can share that information with us. Because if it's not broke, why fix it? Meaning if that same script worked yesterday, they're using that same script today. So you got our communities, Arab communities, Muslim mosques, Christian churches. I'm talking about those that are preaching liberation theology, black organizations, white organizations that really want substantive change. They're honeycombed with agents right now. They're honeycombed with agent provocateurs right now. So that when an incident like this occurs, they can always go and get some patsies. So as the book says, the Bible says, where there are 2 or 3 of you gathered in my name, there I am also. Well, that's God and Jesus, and Muhammad, but you better know that's the FBI, that's the CIA, that's Homeland Security. They talking that way as well and planning that way as well. Because they know as things get worse in this country, economically, you're going to rise. You're going to rise, and they know that they're in a decline. Their world and their civilization, their rulership is in a decline. So they got to be on the lookout for those that would, of course,